Hey, what's up guys? I wanted to show you some changes I made to my live rig real quick. This is for all you gear nerds out there. Well, let me just get right to it. So this is a drum mixer. So I wanted to be able to hear my drums better in my headphones. Now, this is totally a luxury buy. This is not something that everybody needs to have. It's a bit overkill. But let me just tell you where I'm coming from. So for the past couple years, we've been doing in-ear monitors with my band. And you may have seen a video I made about the Jamhub, which is this guy right here. And it all comes from that rack over there. And it's basically a monitor mixer that we use to get everybody their own headphone mix. Now, there are some limitations based on inputs. I couldn't get all my drums in there or any of them at all. So I would always get a send back from the soundboard with a drum mix. Now, depending on who was the sound engineer that night, the mix could be way different. So it's just something small hassle I dealt with, is having a different drum mix in my headphones every night. Not really a showstopper, you know, we can get around that. In fact, it's still way better than the days of wedge monitors where you never know what you're going to get. So, you know, I've been through it all. But finally, I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I want to have the perfect headphone mix. And so I had a couple of good paying gigs recently, and I thought, you know what? Let me treat myself real quick. So anyway, bought this mixer, and it works kind of the same way as our Jamhub rack. Got a splitter down here. So all of the drum mics run along that snake all the way over to here. They run straight into the splitter. And then from there, one set of outputs goes to the mixer. As you can see here, I got overhead, kick, snare, toms, all the inputs. Also able to run an aux cable, so I can run my click track straight into the mixer. That's really convenient. So yeah, this way I'm able to mix my own drums for the headphones only. This only goes to the headphones. The other half of the outputs from the splitter then goes to the soundboard. So it's a pretty convenient setup. It does take up a bit of space on stage, which, you know, whatever. It's part of the setup now. It's okay. It's part of my rig. But at the end of the night, pack up all the drums. All the cables tuck neatly under here. If I can get my camera to focus. All the cables tuck neatly under here, as well as the other snake, which just rolls up right into the back. Put the lids on, ready to roll. So it is actually a pretty streamlined rig. I'll tell you a few other things I did. Went ahead and recorded all my drums right into Pro Tools. Now, the reason I did this was I wanted to find out if any of these microphones were out of phase with each other. Sometimes when you have multiple mics, they can be out of phase. So I recorded them. I zoomed way in. And you can actually see the difference in timing between the overhead, the kick, the snare, all the different mics. And then I started playing around with phase flip. So I would just, start with the overhead as my foundation. And then I would add each other mic one at a time. And then I would flip the phase on it to see if it sounded better one way or the other. What I was able to determine was the kick drum sounded better when it was flipped in relation to the overhead. All the other mics sounded fine, snare, toms. The vocal mic sounded better when it was flipped. And it doesn't affect the vocals at all. Like, the sound of my voice doesn't change by flipping the phase on the mic. But all the drums that bleed into the vocal mic, I noticed before they were kind of sounding thin. As soon as I kicked that mic on, which I'm able to do via an on-off switch on the cable. So I noticed whenever I'd kick that mic on, the drums kind of sounded thin. Mainly the snare drum, it would just lose all that warmth and body. So sure enough, flip the phase on it, the drums sound great now. So after all is said and done, I ended up flipping the phase on the kick mic and the vocal mic. Now first, I didn't want to permanently change my cables just yet, so I bought these things. A couple of these on Amazon, phase flip adapter, and it swaps the 2 and the 3 pin. So I popped those on there, recorded it again into Pro Tools, checked the phase, everything was sounding sweet. So then I actually wanted to make it permanent. So I went into the mic cable, opened it up, swapped the 2 and the 3 pin, soldered it back together, popped it all back together, recorded it one more time into Pro Tools just to check, and sure enough, everything is sounding much better. All the mics are now in phase with each other, which is also going to help the sound engineer because it's one less thing for him to worry about. So, in fact, I'm waiting to see if he notices at tonight's gig. That'll be the true test, you know, see if the sound guy notices. But that's about it. Oh, one more change I made, which I'm actually probably most excited about this, is I installed an XLR jack on the bass drum. So you can see here, instead of plugging in a mic, I actually just plug in to the drum itself. And that was pretty simple. I drilled a hole in the drum, ran a mic cable to it, soldered it up, and now the mic lives inside the bass drum essentially. So once I put the front head back on, that will just stay intact. And this right here is also pretty cool. You may have seen these before. It's called a Kelly shoe. It's a rubber band mounted. It's kind of like a shock mount. And it's neat because now the kick mic stays in the same position every time. There's no mic stands to worry about. You don't have any, any cables to trip on. And now that this is mounted inside, put the front head back on, and you don't see any of that mess. It's just a really clean setup, and it saves me a little bit of time at the end of the night. Hey, every 30 seconds saved during loadout is another 30 seconds of sleep after a gig. So, you know what I mean? Every little bit helps. So that's pretty much it. Those are some changes that I made to my rig for those of you that are interested in gear as much as I am. So now I just got to polish my cymbals. All right, until next time. See ya.